Let me ask you something. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Go ahead, picture them in your mind. Your friends, your coworkers, your partner, maybe even your family. Now here's the question, what would they tell me about you? Would they show me your drive? Your ambition? Your vision for the future? Or would they tell me you're playing small, settling, and stuck in the same place you were last year? Because here's the truth. We don't rise above the people we surround ourselves with. We rise with them. Or, we sink with them. And that's what we're going to dive into today, the power of your circle, and how it shapes your future. By the way, if this is your first time here, welcome to Once Upon a Mic, a space where we share stories, lessons, and conversations to help you grow, find clarity, and step into the best version of yourself. If you find value in this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Because growth is even better when we do it together. Alright, now back to the question, have you ever noticed how when your closest friends are motivated, you suddenly feel motivated too? You start setting goals, pushing yourself, believing in more. And when they're negative, lazy, or full of excuses, somehow, you slip into that same energy. That's not an accident. That's influence. And influence is powerful. Today, we're unpacking one of the most overlooked truths of success, your circle shapes your future. Who you allow in your life can either push you closer to your dreams, or pull you quietly away from them. And by the end of this episode, I promise you'll start looking at your circle a little differently. There's a saying I love. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. At first, that sounds a little dramatic. But the older I get, the more I realize it's true. Your circle is your mirror. Whether you like it or not, you eventually reflect the people closest to you. Let me give you an example. Back in school, I noticed something. When I hung out with friends who studied hard, I studied harder. Not because they told me to, but because I didn't want to be the only one slacking. It felt natural to rise to the level of the group. But the seasons when I surrounded myself with people who skipped classes, complained about teachers, or never turned in homework, guess what? I slowly became one of them too. It wasn't a conscious choice. It was influence. Now fast forward into adulthood. The same principle applies. If you surround yourself with people who talk about ideas, who dream big, who take action, you become a person of ideas, dreams, and action. But if you surround yourself with people who gossip, complain, and settle, that's the energy that will rub off on you. This is what I call the mirror effect. You can't outgrow your circle. Not unless you change it. So here's my challenge to you early on. Take a hard look at the 5 people closest to you. Ask yourself, are they pulling me forward, or are they holding me back? Let me share a story. There was a young athlete, talented but not exceptional. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest. But he had one thing that changed everything, his circle. He trained with people better than him, people who were faster, more disciplined, more dedicated. And at first, he struggled to keep up. He felt out of place. But day after day, he started to adapt. He pushed harder. He learned their routines. He absorbed their habits. Within a few years, that same young man became one of the best in his sport. Not because he was born with superior talent, but because his circle forced him to grow. Now here's the twist, that story is not just about some random athlete. It's about countless athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders across history. From Michael Jordan crediting his teammates for shaping his competitive fire, to Steve Jobs saying he always surrounded himself with people who challenged him. The truth is universal, who you're around determines who you become. And here's the scary part, it works the other way too. If you hang around people who normalize mediocrity, you'll start to think mediocrity is okay. If your circle makes excuses for everything, you'll start making excuses too. That's why today, we need to talk about being intentional with your circle. Because whether you realize it or not, your future is being written by the people around you. Now let's talk about the science behind this. There's a famous quote from Jim Rohn: "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And while that sounds like just a catchy saying, research actually backs it up. Psychologists call it social contagion. And no, that doesn't mean you'll literally catch a cold from your friends. It means moods, behaviors, and even beliefs are contagious. There was a Harvard study that followed thousands of people for over 20 years. They discovered that happiness spreads through social networks. If a friend of yours becomes happy, your own chance of becoming happier rises by 25%. Same with obesity, same with smoking, same with financial decisions. In other words, who you're around shapes how you think, how you act, and how you feel. Now let's get practical. Have you ever noticed how when your group of friends is excited about something, let's say investing in stocks or starting side hustles, suddenly, you start learning about those things too? But if your group spends their time gossiping about celebrities or complaining about their boss, you find yourself getting sucked into those conversations instead. This isn't about being judgmental. It's about being aware. Because the science is clear, you adapt to the norms of the group you belong to. And if your circle normalizes small thinking, excuses, or negativity, you will absorb that, even if you don't want to. So here's the key: if you want to change your life, you need to change your circle. Not necessarily cut people off immediately, but to be intentional about where your energy flows. Who gets access to you? Who influences your mindset? So let me ask you this. Right now, if I looked at your top 5 influences, your closest friends, the people you text every day, the ones you hang out with most, would they be proud if you achieved your dream? Or would they secretly be uncomfortable with your success? That's how you know if you're in the right circle. Let's dig deeper. Because when I say your circle shapes your future, I don't just mean choose good friends. I mean, understand the types of people in your life. Not everyone is meant to have the same seat. Some people belong in your inner circle. Others should only be acquaintances. And some? Well, some you may need to let go of altogether. Let's break this down. First, let's talk about the ones who pull you down. We all know them. The people who constantly complain but never take action. Dismiss your dreams with lines like "that's impossible" or "who do you think you are?" Or maybe the subtle ones, the friends who joke about your goals but deep down, don't want to see you grow. I call these people anchors. They keep you in place. They don't want you to sail too far, because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Now listen carefully, not everyone who holds you back is evil. Some of them actually love you. Sometimes, it's family members trying to keep you safe. Sometimes it's friends who are afraid of change. But here's the truth: just because they love you doesn't mean they're good for your future. You cannot afford to let anchors define your destiny. On the flip side, let's talk about the people who push you forward. These are the mentors, the dreamers, the doers. The ones who challenge you to think bigger, to act braver, to believe in yourself when you forget how. They're the people who don't let you settle for average. They hold you accountable. They celebrate your wins. And when you fail, they don't say, "Told you so." They say, "Okay, what's next? Let's try again." I call these people engines. Because they don't just walk beside you. They fuel you. They move you forward. Now here's the thing: you need more engines in your circle. And fewer anchors. That doesn't mean you cut everyone out immediately. But it does mean you make conscious decisions about who gets your time, your energy, and your influence. Here's how I like to imagine it. Life is like a bus ride. Some people deserve a front row seat in your life, they influence your direction. Some people are just passengers, they're part of the journey, but they don't steer it. And some? Well, some you need to drop off at the next stop. Because if they stay on board too long, they'll drain your fuel and delay your destination. The question is, who's driving your bus right now? And are you okay with where it's headed? Alright, we've talked about the theory. We've shared the stories. Now let's get practical. How do you actually shape your circle so that it shapes your future for the better? Let me give you 4 clear steps. First, audit your circle. Grab a piece of paper later and write down the 5 people you spend the most time with. Next to each name, ask yourself, do they inspire me? Do they challenge me? Do they support me when I grow? If the answer is no to all 3, well, that's a red flag. Awareness is the first step. You can't change what you don't notice. Second, set boundaries. You don't have to cut people off to limit their influence. Sometimes, you just need to adjust how much access they have to you. If someone drains your energy, spend less time with them. If someone constantly criticizes your dreams, stop sharing your dreams with them. Boundaries aren't rejection. Boundaries are protection. Protection of your mind, your peace, and your future. Third, seek growth circles. This is key. Because if you only subtract the wrong people without adding the right ones, you'll end up isolated. So actively look for communities, groups, and friendships that pull you higher. Join masterminds. Attend events. Volunteer. Take classes. Find mentors. Remember, you don't have to be the smartest in the room. In fact, you shouldn't be. If you're always the smartest person in your circle is too small. So put yourself in rooms where you feel uncomfortable. That's where growth happens. And finally, step 4, become the person you're looking for. If you want friends who are supportive, be supportive. If you want mentors who are generous with advice, be generous with encouragement. If you want a circle of dreamers, become a dreamer yourself. Because like attracts like. And when you live at a higher standard, you naturally attract people who do the same. Let's recap. Audit your circle. Set boundaries. Seek growth circles. And become the person you're looking for. If you do these 4 things, your circle won't just shape your future, it will accelerate it. Alright, let's bring this all together. We started today with a simple truth: your circle shapes your future. And over the last hour, we've uncovered just how powerful that truth really is. We talked about the mirror effect, how the people closest to you reflect who you are becoming. We shared stories of how influence works, both in positive and negative ways. We looked at the science, the studies that show habits, moods, and even happiness are contagious. We broke down the types of people in your life, the anchors who hold you back, and the engines who push you forward. And finally, we got practical: how to audit your circle, set boundaries, seek growth circles, and most importantly, become the person you're looking for. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Who's in your circle right now? Because whether you realize it or not, they're shaping the person you will be 5 years from now. If you want to see your future, just look at your friends. If you want to change your future, you may need to change your circle. That doesn't mean you stop loving people. It doesn't mean you become cold or arrogant. It means you become intentional. Because not everyone deserves the same level of access to your life. Let me say this again. Boundaries aren't rejection. Boundaries are protection. And when you protect your mind and your energy, you protect your future. So, if you take one action after listening to this episode, let it be this. Do an honest audit of your circle. Ask yourself, who are my engines? Who are my anchors? And what can I do, starting today, to spend more time with the people who fuel me, and less with the people who drain me? Because your future depends on it. Remember this. You don't have to walk this journey alone. But you do have to choose wisely who walks it with you. If you want to change your future, start by changing your circle. Because in the end, your circle is your mirror, and sooner or later, you'll reflect it.